I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
Gavin Newsom 2028 presidential campaign. He's grandstanding and making a clown of himself because he wants national attention. He tried the moderate thing for a month and realized it wasn't raising him any funds.
Picture this for a second. Lindy Li took aim at California's so-called golden boy, Gavin Newsom, and zeroed in on that perfectly polished hair, so glossy it could pass for a luxury car ad. Ouch. It landed like a live roast. Approval numbers slipped, screenshots spread fast, and suddenly everyone was talking. This wasn't a gentle tease. People even joked, does his stylist double as his crisis manager? Instead of tossing a light jab, Lindy cracked the shine around him and he looked rattled, like someone who just learned the delete button can't erase everything.
Back to being an anti-Trump crusader because he realizes that it helps him with his coffers and his fundraising. So that's why he's on a tear, and he's a complete hypocrite. And I just saw that California now leads the nation in homelessness and unemployment. Maybe he should focus on that.
This is a guy who retweeted himself on Mount Rushmore. This is a guy who retweeted himself, dare I say, as Pope.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's hawking a Trump Bible. This is a guy who's out there selling perfume and with one of the great grifts, a coin.
But I want to get to the Trump is not hot. So
Gavin Newsom has long carried himself like the front page of a magazine. Not a strand out of place, not a smile without rehearsal, not a cuff rolled without care. He presents himself like a high-end brand, smooth, confident, ready for the spotlight, selling charm as a solution to serious state problems. Bright teeth, polished gestures, camera-ready poses. The message is clear, made for the stage, not the daily scramble most people face. You can almost picture him glancing in the mirror before a speech, practicing that half smirk, whispering, remember this face.
He tried to be a moderate for about a month. I think it was April when he started his podcast. Exactly. He started his podcast. He had Charlie Kirk on. He tried the moderate shtick. Realized that it didn't get him the donations that he wanted. And then he was like, wait a minute. Being an anti-Trump crusader actually gets me money. I want people to be aware that a lot of what politicians say on TV, on social media every day is to get the coffers, to get money rolling into the coffers, to get the fundraising machine revved up.
If you're enjoying this roast, go ahead and hit subscribe. Now here's the thing about glossy covers. They sparkle at first, but once the shine fades, the thin cardboard underneath starts to show. That's when Lindy Li stepped in, not with a tap, but with a blast. After years marked by blackouts, raging fires, and the easy glow of San Francisco brunch culture, what could still surprise him? Apparently, being called out for that Hollywood governor style did the trick.
$1 million in 100 days is not just run-of-the-mill. This is astounding. And I have a duty of care to my donors who gave millions of dollars, and it wasn't easy for them to give. Some of them were paying in installments. It was a sacrifice for them. They looked for ways to give. So, people gave their hearts and souls to the campaign. They deserve a serious accounting to see why we were told that she was close or even winning in some of the swing states, but we lost all 7.
we heard on the podcast, but what did they say on this call? Did they accept any blame? Did they sort of talk about mistakes that were made?
No.
While Gavin practiced his presidential poses and dramatic hair flips, Lindy arrived armed with proof so fiery, it made rolling power outages look like soft candlelight. But let's rewind for a moment. That carefully crafted image has followed Newsom everywhere. He doesn't just walk into a room, he glides in like a luxury fragrance ad, the kind that makes people reach for their wallets without thinking. His whole brand rests on a picture of sunny California perfection, casting himself as the golden rescuer keeping the dream alive.
Not only did Gavin Newsom lie, he was the biggest liar. He was the one, and I was there. He was the one in the spin room lying to the entire world on the night of the debate, saying it was just a cold, nothing to see here, move along. But he is such a congenital.
That glossy brochure version of Gavin Newsom doesn't quite match what people see outside. Homelessness keeps rising, spreading block by block as if someone turned up the heat and walked away. Even Elon Musk has pushed back over heavy taxes, and companies are leaving California faster than contestants exiting a struggling reality show. Still, Gavin keeps spinning the story of success. It's almost mesmerizing, like watching a magician pull scarves from a hat while an elephant stomps across the stage. Then, Lindy Li cuts through the applause, That's not a rabbit. The trick is exposed. And who is Lindy Li? Not just another loud voice online. She speaks with precision and confidence sharp enough to slice through polish and presentation. When she talks, people listen. This wasn't playground teasing. It felt closer to careful surgery. She pointed straight at the weak spots. Homeless camps multiplying, tents lining sidewalks, billions spent with little to show for it. Tossing money around without clear results, she argued, isn't leadership. It's confusion dressed up as compassion. For someone who prides himself on fixing problems, hearing that sidewalks still filled with tents must sting.
Instead of focusing his time on this complete waste of taxpayer money, he has no agenda items. He has nothing positive to offer the American people. The only thing he cares about is himself. Everything is about him. And even Democrats understand this guy is truly fake. He's if you look up snake oil salesman in the dictionary, you would see his face right next to the definition.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be snake oil or hair grease or hair products, but you never know.
Actually.
Then there's the corporate exodus. Not long ago, tech leaders in California were building apps to deliver everything from rides to coffee foam art. Now, executives are loading up their Teslas and heading to Texas before you can even finish the phrase no income tax. Lindy made sure the whole country noticed. If billions of dollars are trading palm trees for cowboy hats and barbecue, maybe the golden dream isn't shining like it used to. But she didn't stop there. She went after his image, his pride, his stage presence, the polished lines aimed at a future campaign highlight reel. She argued that he treats the state like a backdrop, turning each crisis into a speech instead of a solution. Meanwhile, everyday people face rent prices that rival luxury car payments. That's where the sharpest cut landed. The smooth, camera-ready persona, the clever one-liners, the air of being untouchable began to fade. In its place stood a governor struggling to keep order at home, promising once again that the repairs would come next week.
It drives you crazy that people still speculate that you're waiting in the wings to run for president. I know it's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen. But what do you think is fueling that speculation?
I don't know. I don't think much anymore, and I'm so proud of the president and the incredible job he did. Didn't surprise me at all, and I know it didn't surprise you. I really believe that. I said to my friend the other day, I said, you know, on this age, we can get into debates around fitness. Look, I'd rather have 80 years behind me than those 88 federal criminal counts in front of me. And so I feel very good about Joe Biden.
Lindy's strike hit hard because it rang true. There was no shouting match, no flashy TV showdown. It was calm, precise, and painfully honest. And that's why it landed. She didn't scream that the emperor had no clothes. She simply pointed at the cracks in the palace, leaking roofs, spreading mold, rats in the walls. Once you see that kind of damage, you can't pretend it isn't there. Reactions rolled in fast. Reporters sensed a shift. Even some of Gavin Newsom's strongest supporters looked uneasy. Nothing tears down a carefully built image faster than plain, stubborn facts. Lindy handled it like a pro, exposing more than small flaws. She compared the whole operation to a fancy resort hiding serious problems behind shiny brochures. The result? Californians, tired of high rent, climbing utility bills, and endless traffic, finally heard someone say what they'd been thinking for years. Maybe the polished golden image isn't the full story. Maybe the leader who speaks of big dreams is running a state that feels more like a worn-out movie set than a bright future.
He mentions 4 machinations that he plans to use in order to circumvent Trump, or in his words, Trump-proof democracy. And I just want to say, before I go into the 4 different measures, he is basically saying the American people cannot be trusted to make the right decision. Right. So I have to engage in these really slimy and subversive measures to undermine the goal of the American people.
And for someone often linked to bigger ambitions, even whispers about the White House, that contrast stings. It's one thing to aim high. It's another to face questions about what's happening at home. Here's the real twist. In politics, people sometimes forgive scandals or bad decisions. What's harder to forgive is hypocrisy. Lindy pressed on that point like it was opening night on Broadway. While he presents himself as a national savior, she argued, his own state is losing residents, money, and patience. That gap doesn't just bruise pride, it threatens the entire story he's been telling about himself. Suddenly, Gavin didn't look like the easy favorite. He looked like a leader scrambling to contain troubles that grew on his watch. Once cracks appear, no amount of hair gel or smooth talk can seal them. Lindy's words spread quickly. Gavin, usually skilled at shaping the narrative, seemed caught off guard. This time, he wasn't directing the script. As the smoke cleared, even media voices that once praised him began asking tougher questions. The shine faded, and when the spotlight shifts from applause to inspection, every flaw becomes harder to hide.
If you're not going to be a good person, can you please not be a pathological liar at the very least?
He's unable to do that. They conjoined.
I want to say, so he is out there doing a 180 on trans, but he's been on the forefront of trans advocacy all these years. Are you treating us like, why are you treating us like idiots? Or that we were born yesterday? We remember distinctly, he was one of the most ardent trans warriors. Not only that, he has a gumption to rewrite history and say that he knew all along that Biden's brain was off.
The harsh realities aren't hidden in charts or buried in fine print. In parts of California, tents-lined sidewalks, playgrounds sit scattered with trash, and visitors whisper that the California dream feels more like a disaster film. Homelessness isn't an abstract number in a report, it's visible on street corners. Once Lindy Li laid it all out, the media couldn't look away. And when the press senses trouble, it moves fast, especially when the spotlight turns on someone it once praised. Almost overnight, Gavin Newsom's polished image stopped being the headline. The focus shifted from smooth speeches and camera-ready confidence to the unrest behind the scenes. For a leader used to applause, that shift hit hard.
Go through the force.
His first thing is a special election.
What does that mean?
Special session of the state legislature. He would just call them back and have them do a lightning round of Trump-proof measures that will circumvent his immigration enforcement and other, for example, the deployment of the National Guard. Basically, Trump-proof anything.
He lost that in court.
But he doesn't have that power.
He lost.
He is lying. He's just saying whatever. As I said before, he's just saying whatever he thinks his audience wants to hear.
Then came the louder response from Californians themselves. For years, critics say, crises were softened with speeches. Wildfires were framed as manageable. Rolling blackouts were brushed aside. Homeless camps grew, yet the message stayed upbeat. Now, many residents aren't convinced. People can only tighten their belts so many times before they start asking where the money and the promises are really going. Lindy didn't claim to uncover secrets. She simply said what many felt, only louder than any public relations team could manage. Suddenly, the same question echoed across social media feeds, dinner tables, and coffee shops. If he struggles to steady one state, how can he guide a whole nation? It's like a cook boasting about a world-class kitchen after burning toast. Political insiders noticed too. For years, some circles, especially in entertainment and media hubs, spoke of bigger ambitions, even hinting at the White House. But charm fades when residents and businesses leave, when answers sound more like slogans than solutions, and when criticism comes sharp and steady. At that point, the glow feels less like leadership and more like marketing. What made it sting most was the source. If it had come from a longtime rival, it might have been brushed off as routine politics. Bias could be blamed, motives questioned.
But Gavin Newsom was on the front lines of defending Biden. He wasn't just a defender and champion of Biden. He was the strongest. He debated DeSantis on the national stage. He went out of his way to, frankly, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, he lied to the American people about the fitness of the president. He went out there again and again and said he was fine. Meanwhile, people like me were punished.
But Lindy's critique arrived from an unexpected direction, and even some former admirers nodded along. That's when a polished story starts to crack, and once cracks show, they're hard to hide. Of course, Gavin reached for his usual escape plan. He smiled, redirected, and leaned on charm. But here's the catch. When problems are visible and proof is easy to find, charm starts to look thin. Speeches about ending homelessness don't erase tents outside grocery stores. Promises of innovation don't stop families from packing U-Hauls for Nevada. He can talk about the White House, but many people are still asking whether he can steady the streets of California. That's why Lindy Li's critique hit so hard. She highlighted the gap between presentation and performance. While Gavin Newsom speaks like a future president, critics argue the state feels mismanaged.
Right to come in
And right now, Gavin Newsom is treating public safety, he's treating our lives and our treasure as his plaything for his presidential campaign. His priority isn't the safety and the well-being of the American people. It's his own political preservation. He's positioning himself, trying to have it both ways, trying to pretend that he's all for illegal aliens, and then also that he's moderate. You cannot have it both ways.
Streets struggling, rent soaring, patience thinning. He wants to be seen as a forward-thinking leader, yet many residents say they're still waiting for practical fixes. The image of a rising star has started to dim, replaced by doubts that are harder to brush aside. What makes it tougher is that this moment won't fade quickly. Most political clashes pass in a news cycle. This one touched daily frustrations, housing costs, safety concerns, long commutes. Californians don't need reminders, they live it. The evidence isn't abstract. It's part of their routine. So what does that mean for a leader under the brightest spotlight of his career? The man once described as the heir to his party's future now appears less certain. Allies grow quieter. Rivals grow bolder. Each public appearance feels heavier, as if the questions linger in the room. People aren't just noticing the polished hair and confident grin anymore. They're replaying Lindy's words and wondering what's beneath the surface, and he likely feels it too. Confidence softens. The shine dulls. The carefully built image starts to slip. This isn't just political embarrassment, it's personal. When your whole brand is built on being untouchable, the sharpest blow is discovering that you're not.